No. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Unplugged Grief Podcast. Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast, and I'm glad everybody's joining us on this lovely Wednesday afternoon. It's sunny, and I have with me Miss Jenny Beltzer. And
Baltazer.
say that again.
Baltazer?
Okay, whatever. Don't ask me to try to say that. She's another grief coach, but she has a lot of great ideas, and she's made a lot of effort to make to be there for people who need what she's going to present to us. And I would like for us to go ahead and let Jenny speak. She's going to speak for the next 20 minutes. She's going to tell us about her story and how she got where she's doing what she's doing now, which is a thrilling thing that we all find a lot of things in common to why we do what we do now. And I hope it is an encouragement to many people out there to also motivate you to so you can see that we don't allow grief to weigh us down. Somehow we rose above. Not to say we're goody goody or anything like that. Is that sometimes some people has to find a way to keep themselves out of that deep dark hole. And sometimes we do things in memory of our loved ones. You know, um, I'm sorry. It's not that doesn't mean we're goody goody or better than others, or we're judging or putting down other grievers because everybody grieves differently, and everybody's on their own timetable. And
Hmm.
although some of us are still on that timetable, we still had to find a way to find that joy, to find that fulfillment, to find that purpose so that we can keep going. Because a lot of times, if we let our grief hold us back, then we will never know what God has for us, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I know easier said than done, but all I can say is do what most of us did is we had to put our trust in God, believe that whatever his plan is for us moving forward, that we will fall into that what his will. And maybe it means some of us will become doctors, some of us may become lawyers, some of us may become nurses, and many of us became grief coaches or
Hmm.
life coaches. So because we've always had a passion for something, but we never knew for sure what that something was until now. So
Hmm.
Jenny's going to share with us what purpose was given to her and how God called her to do what she's doing now. The floor
Hmm.
is yours, Jenny. Thank you. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put this on. Hold on. I can't believe I forgot this. So go ahead, Jenny, and tell us about
Okay.
yourself. And
Thank you so much, Dee, for having me. It's an honor to be here with you, and how beautifully put, to be stepping into our purpose and discovering what our true life's passion is, and how so much of that has evolved for me personally through my grief story, and how I'm now able to share that with others and truly understand what my purpose is here on this planet. Um, so, a little bit about me. I work as a coach, as you mentioned. I do transformational healing work around grief and other major life changes with people. I'm a trauma informed yoga teacher. And I do speaking, I teach workshops, and I'm writing a book. I've been a writer for many years, and I'm kind of finally getting to the point of putting my words down on paper and out into the world. So that has been an exciting process as well. Would you like me to share a little bit about my personal story and how I got to this place? Yes. Okay. So um, I I guess I'll start. Where should I start? I guess perhaps my training is as a counselor. So I have my master's degree in counseling, studied mental health. I actually worked for a bereavement center and a hospice as in palliative care and supporting people who were survivors and who had experienced loss, all different kinds of loss.
so
When
you
I was
already had a previous
Had that. Yeah.
already. Oh
It
my
was
goodness, Jenny.
It's
So
so
this,
interesting. Yeah, I know. It's like, so I was doing that in my early 20s. I was fascinated and drawn to um, not only the healing process of, anticipatory grief, and also like supporting families who are grieving, and looking at all the possibilities for people to live with less pain and less um, struggle even at the end of their life. It was a major part of my growth early on in my life. So it's like half my lifetime ago, so I started there, I guess. And then I kind of took a windy path to get where I am now, and my life changed in a lot of ways, as it does for many of us. And I became a massage therapist. I did that for 22 years. And I did mental health counseling kind of in and out of that. But I primarily, while I was having my children, I worked in body work and did massage therapy. But something kept calling me back to the body mind and supporting people. I found that I was doing a lot of coaching and counseling with people as I was providing them with support around neck pain or stomach issues, or they'd injured a part of their body, and there was a lot of like stress and anxiety that went along with that. So it kind of brought me back to this place of, well, what's happening for us in our mental emotional state that's making it harder for us to heal. um, I had a family. I have three girls. I've met my husband, and we had three children together. And that was a life-changing experience in and of itself. So I spent most of my 30s raising my children, kind of like I still am. I have currently a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a almost teenager. She's almost 13. She'll be 13 this summer. Um, so 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I lost my husband. I lost him to suicide. So it was a very sudden loss. And they, of course, my girls lost their dad. Um, and
did I
that,
just not interview you recently?
no, no, you didn't
No,
interview.
there's somebody I just
That's
spoke
a
on my
similar
podcast
story.
last week who
I'm not sure. I'm not
who
sure.
also lost her husband to suicide.
Okay.
What the shocking part is, I didn't even know she was an engineer. So was her husband.
Wow.
She
Yeah.
gave up her engineer work career to raise her family once her husband was gone.
Oh my
I gotta
goodness.
remember who that was, and I was like, didn't I just hear this story before?
Similar,
Yeah.
yes, very similar story. Yeah, it's interesting because I haven't met many other, I say this often, like I've met a lot of women who are widows, but not a lot of widows of suicide. So, and there is a uniqueness to that. Of course, we all feel that our story is very unique in our journey, but there's something different about sudden loss in that way. I think that, so to be able to connect with someone, I love to find out who that person is, because I don't know very many of them, at least not like personally. I've come across like Facebook groups that are for survivors for women who have lost their husbands that way, but it's very rare. So to come across that. So
Well, 2 weeks ago, I interviewed somebody who went through the same thing.
yeah,
I can't go look for her name right now because I'm
that's
in
okay.
business, but I
Yeah,
want to connect you with her because
we'll connect.
I think it's amazing how, I mean, you came already from a mental health um, counselor already, but
Yeah,
so many of us come from so many different types of careers, and how this one thing brings us together for
it's so
support,
true. It's so
for that
true.
support. And
Yeah.
I, as soon as I find her name, I will text it to you.
Yeah, let me know.
Cause
That'd be
she's one of
wonderful.
our coaches that's going to be speaking.
Oh, fantastic.
So I just, I mean, you
Is
come from
it
the,
Allison?
you came from engineering.
Allison
Ah, I think it was Allison. I
Nelson?
think it was
Okay.
Allison.
When
Yeah,
you said engineer, I thought, oh, well, maybe it's her, because I don't know that much about her story. So I did not know
I think
that.
it was Allison. Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
amazing.
Yeah. So
But with you being a mental health therapist already. A
Mm.
therapist, right? Or a psychiatrist.
Counselor, yeah, master's level counselor, yeah. Therapist, I guess you would
Did
say.
you get your master's and all that after he passed away or before?
No, I had it all before.
And he didn't say anything to you of things that were bothering him.
No,
He went through the
no,
same thing.
yeah,
He would probably be afraid to because he already know what you did for a living. So he knows if he said something to you about that, what would happen? Baker Act right now.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
worst thing you would have is my wife just Baker Act me. And he probably felt, I can't let that happen.
yeah. It's been one of the hardest parts of coming out of, like of grief for me, certainly, is that um I couldn't be that soft place for him to land, that he did not share with me his struggles, to at least to that extent. He was not, so he didn't use substances. He didn't have any visual outward signs that beyond the normal stresses of life, that he was that deeply depressed. So
Wow.
it was very interesting to me to like be able to reconcile like why, like why, and like just feeling a lot of sense of um shame and regret over what could I have done differently, right? So like what could I have done to be like more open to receiving whatever he was going through? Because I thought everything was good,
Yeah.
generally. We had three young kids and normal stresses of life, and just his job was very stressful for him, and he often talked about changing jobs and doing that. And I was always supportive of that. Um, he struggled with his weight a bit. That was something that he would had a hard time with, like kind of he would eat if he was upset. And it was something that he kind of soothed himself. And I knew that.
Emotional eating.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
I'm
big,
guilty of that.
yeah, it can happen. And, but there was nothing to me that,
Pointed.
obviously, that I had any idea that there would be something to be really worried about him for. So I was often trying to like connect him to, because he was stressed out in his job. Like we would try to get him, like he wanted to start working with a personal trainer. And these are some of the things that happened just shortly, before. Like he wanted to take pottery classes. He talked about things. Um, but he never really gave himself the opportunity to take advantage of those things. He really kind of pulled away, I guess, from things very quickly. And it was shocking, to say the least, when we lost him. So um, luckily, we were blessed with family close by, and we ended up staying with my mom for a period of time. He actually left my children. I went to work and he left my children at my mom's home. And he said he was going to run some errands, and then we never saw him again. So it was this whole like time frame where we were like, he was missing and we didn't know where he was, and nothing made sense. And then to find out that he was no longer with us was just the worst possible thing I could ever imagine. So I feel it in my bones as I say it every time I share the story. So
So I'm sure you probably question why God, why this happened.
why would this happen? He was a really strong believer in God and had a strong faith. He's Filipino, raised in the Philippines, came to the United States when he was 11, and was a practicing Catholic. I am not, that wasn't part of my upbringing. So he always kind of brought that into our home, that strong sense of comfort and strength in God and belief in the love of God. And so I know that he had that, but it was even more confusing for me, to think, well, it's not time for you to leave us. Like, this is where you belong, here with us. And why would this happen now? So yeah. So then I guess then, the next phase was that we, this season of grief of just really, I mean, for us, sudden loss, there's this, there's trauma, right? So you're sitting in this place where you feel like you can't move, you feel like you can't breathe, you're not really sure how to keep going. And like nothing feels the same. I always say, like, it's just like, it felt like I was restarting our life completely, and trying to figure out what all of that looked like, because I just knew it couldn't look the same as it did before. I had a business, a massage therapy business. I also taught yoga, and my children were all in the schools that I grew up in the small town that I grew up in, which was a wonderfully supportive, loving place. And so even that didn't feel right anymore because he wasn't there with us. So we ended up moving. My brother to my brother's area. We actually moved in with my brother for a little while. We left our home. I left my business. Actually, I don't necessarily advise to everyone after they've had loss, but for us, it felt like the right thing, or for me personally. And in conversations, even with at the time, my oldest was 9, but very wise. And she was very open to starting anew somewhere else where we felt supported. There was something about being in the same environment for us that felt like we were going to kind of get stuck in
Like grief mode.
this new label that, for myself, like being a widow, and like my identity had shifted, and how can I just didn't feel like it was something that I wanted to keep. I wanted to like figure out how to do it on my own, and I needed quiet, I needed calm. And so we moved in with my brother, and the first, couple months were, he took care of us, virtually took care of us. My kids weren't in school. I kept them home for a long time. And we just were trying to like really go into quiet mode and just be together. There was a lot of healing together. And ultimately we moved up to the area where we're in Western Massachusetts now, which is just not that far from where we lived. It's about an hour and a half. But just enough that we feel like it's a new place and a new environment. We can keep in touch with friends, and my mom lives in the old community as well, so we can kind of go back and forth. So it's been so good for us to have a fresh start, and just really giving ourselves the space for that grief, and honoring the grief on our own terms, and what that looks like for us without like some preconceived idea, like imposed by others. I felt like it was easier for us. It was easier for me, and then to be able to parent my kids through it. So I learned a lot in that. And the transformation that I went through moving up here and healing and learning to integrate some of the things that I had taught others to do for so many years with meditation and yoga, and it became a more integral part of my life. And I started to introduce that into our home with the girls, just moving our bodies and allowing ourselves to feel the joy, which I think is like so hard because you're living in so much sadness all the time, and then you have these moments of joy and you're like, oh, but am I allowed to feel joy? Is that okay? And like, so testing the waters, I think that's how I would best describe it, testing the waters of joy and slowly allowing it to fill our cup again. And then just letting all the feelings flow. This is what I do with my coaching, is like to really let people be in a quiet space, feel safe in a space with me, to be able to experience all of the emotions that they're having, and to really feel them, if they feel safe to, to be able to feel those feelings, anger, sadness, frustration, confusion, shame, guilt, whatever it might be, and then to transform that to self-love, so that we can begin to have more compassion for ourselves and be able to feel more empowered moving forward in our life. So I think a lot of times we skip these steps, we skip the quiet. Our society in general wants us to kind of quickly regain ourself and like re-enter the world, perhaps in just like a little bit different than we were before, but pretty much the same thing.
Well, I
And
noticed in a lot of the groups that I'm in, now that you talk about self-love, is that so many of them, their grief, their grief is so deep and dark that they don't know how to love themselves again. Does that make
yeah,
sense? And
yeah,
and especially when it's parents who've lost children, they they want to, sadly, they just want to not be alive. They want to go and be with their children, and it's like, but that's, so now you're thinking
mm,
suicide. Don't go there
mhm.
because you still have to answer to your other relatives if that happens, and that means they're gonna have to grieve again. And and it's like, I know right now it does not seem like you see a future or a purpose or joy, but I can assure you it's there.
It's
Just
there.
keep walking through that tunnel.
Yeah.
Keep your eye on that light at the end of the tunnel.
Mhm.
You will find hope. You will find hope.
Yes.
And but this, it's just, that's how I sense that people are falling into that deep dark hole of that depression, that they think that by
Yes, that
committing
lack of
suicide
forgiveness for
they could be with their
themselves. Yeah.
family. It's just,
Yes, yes. It's so important for your listeners to hear this message because I think that forgiveness of our own, our own, all the feelings that we have, whether it's positive or a challenging feeling like anger, that it's all okay, and forgive yourself for having all of those feelings.
thank you
Uh,
for saying that. I
Yeah,
think that I need to remember, learn to forgive yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Once you forgive yourself, then everything else will fall in place.
It really does. It really does. I think that
I've been
in
let
that,
them down.
start little bits of self-love, little bits of self-care, even if it's, just being with yourself. Like you'll see me kind of like go and place my hand on my heart, and this is like this embodiment of, compassion for myself. Like
Yes.
I'm feeling a lot of feelings as I share my story, and so it's a reminder to me, and I'll do that with my clients to remind them that they're beautiful, energetic beings, going through life and having a human experience that includes love and loss and grief. And there's always a new possibility. There's always hope for something different and more. And maybe not more, but transformed. I like to say transformed rather than more, because I think there's just this like that we're really learning from our experience
Yes.
and embracing it and feeling that we can embrace that's part of who we are. Our grief isn't going away. We're not, it's not going away. It's part of who we are now. It's part of my existence. And for me to be able to share that as part of my story. I don't always have
And
to.
in a
Yeah.
sense, it's a teacher.
It's a teacher. It's a
In a
teacher
sense,
for
it's a
us.
teacher because grief
Yeah,
knows how to talk to us and sure knows how to teach us a lot of things that we probably didn't even know was there, you know? So, yeah,
absolutely.
to hear you say that, that's like, so then in a sense, it's like it's a teacher because it's teaching
It
us
is.
how to be how to have a better life.
Yeah.
Take that experience and let that experience teach you to have a better life, to be,
Mhm.
my brain is going blank, but I get what you're saying. To
How
be
to,
more
yeah.
fulfilled, to be more loved. You had, so the forgiveness comes, and when you forgive yourself, you, and to let go and to love yourself, then you realize the grief is part of life's lessons that we
Yes.
learn.
Yes. And I think that there are a lot of lessons that if we're open and receptive to it, we'll be able to see. And for me, it was like we were living a very busy life, typical family, very busy life. And grief, what grief did for us was it it slowed us down. Like I had no control over it. It was like, stop,
It
halt.
changed you.
It was like, okay, you need to stop and think about what's going on in your
Yes.
life. So I learned that lesson, that I was moving too fast. I was trying to do too much. I wasn't as present as I could be with my own needs and also my family's. It just really got me to tune into what was most important. So yeah, grief is a
Yeah.
great teacher. I love that.
Yeah.
So
It didn't hit me to think of that until you were just saying that. It's like, so that
mm,
means, in a sense, grief is a teacher because it's amazing when you grieve and all the things that you learn, not only about your life, but your loved one. And that's why I say, don't look at the negative or the bad part of that person. Keep focus on the good stuff because you want the memory to be all of the good stuff, not let the bad stuff drag you down. And
yes.
by thinking of the good stuff, you that's not only a good memory of them, but you're lifting them up. Uh, I had another way of saying it. My brain is not letting it out, but yes, thank you for saying that. I never thought of that. Grief is a teacher.
Hmm, you're welcome. Yeah, I think the forgiveness is important for ourselves, but also for the other, the person that we've lost. I mean, with
Yes,
sudden loss, certainly, it feels like I think, and because of the stigma around suicide, that people want to quickly go to, there's often a lot of labeling and judgment around
yes,
what has happened, right? So and I have experienced lots of judgment around towards me and towards my late husband, and so kind of being able to move through that and understand that people are trying they're trying to figure it out too. And so it's like forgiveness for the people who are judging, forgiveness for, my husband who, really felt lost and alone, despite not really being lost and alone. He was in this like state where he couldn't see that he had all of this support, and wasn't ready to reach out for it. But it's hard to rationalize that in your brain, it's hard to, um, and in some days I feel lots of forgiveness and compassion for myself and for him, and other days, not so much. So I have to kind of roll with that and know that there will be a better day. There will be a day where I can, if I keep leaning into the forgiveness and the hope and moving through and learning from the experience, being open to that there will be more peace on the other side of it. Yeah. So I think you're on mute, Dee. Something.
muted myself. I keep forgetting I muted myself. Um, that is
Okay.
such a good lesson to learn. But tell us a little bit more about. So we know that you do or you've done mental health counseling. So what what was the main core thing that made you decide to do what you're doing now?
Hmm. Oh, so many things.
I know, isn't that terrible?
Poor
You have like a
thing.
bowl of fruit salad right there in
Uh,
front of you. So what's your
so
strawberry? What's your cantaloupe? What's your watermelon? What's
uh,
your grapes? You know, what's
so
your fruit salad?
yeah, I mean, I guess it's interesting because it might not be the answer that you're expecting. Um, Dance has always been, and movement have always been important to me in my life as a way of healing experiences. Having gone through some difficulties in my childhood, going through earlier life experiences that were very difficult, I was drawn to dance and movement as a way to feel better in my body and to release stress and to overcome difficult emotions and to not have to necessarily find the words for things, but to be able to move through the feelings of things. So the dance would be improvisational, or it might be a class that I go to, or later in my life, it was finding yoga and embracing my body as it is as I grow older. I've always come back to the body as a tool for understanding myself. And now as I coach others, um, I found that not only talking and coaching and helping work through a transformational process, that a big part of that is really being able to feel things and embody things and move our body. So it might be gentle movements, it might be releasing excess energy that we have. A lot of times meditation doesn't have to be as something you sit, it can be a walking meditation. It could be mindfulness as you're washing the dishes, or something that dancing in the living room with your kids, and releasing extra energy that you might have. For me, exercise and movement were a big part of my healing process. It was whether it was running outside or doing some yoga poses. It could be a lot of stillness, it could be a lot of movement, it could be dance parties, it could be with my kids, nothing wild and crazy, but just at home, like we'll turn on the music in the morning or in the evening time, and they'll play instruments and we'll dance and we'll move. And I just found that, like, when you're like into your body and you're able to release a lot of that stuff that you're holding on to. So like for me, there was a lot of anger for a while. And I found the more that I moved and I feel that building in me, exercise, like running or, doing something that I'm really kind of like playing an instrument, like a drum, like pounding, that kind of stuff is super healing. It's an expression, it's cathartic. I feel that anytime we create something, it can be very healing. So I've brought that into my coaching. I brought that into my counseling coaching work. And, whether it's giving people suggestions of things that they can integrate into their own life, or practicing something together, learning a new creative outlet for them, some way that they can move through an emotion or a feeling, to help to not hold on to it as much anymore. A lot of grief healing is letting go of the stuff that doesn't feel so good, right? So releasing that in an energetic way and being able to embody a new way of living. So that's what I would say. So dance has definitely been transformational for me, and teaching me to the connection between the body and the mind so that I can bring that to others in their life.
All that exercise you've been doing, all that running,
I can't say I've been doing a lot of exercise.
oh, the dancing and the whatever, running
Yes,
and all,
yes,
but that helped release that anger.
it
You felt
helps.
much
It helps.
better afterwards.
Mhm,
So, so that's why when I say to people, um, when you have a loss, it's okay to be angry because it's not a sin to be angry, and it's
mhm,
okay to be angry at God because it's not a sin to be angry at God. But
mhm.
what becomes a sin is if you take that anger and you go do something to harm somebody with it.
Right,
Or you can take that anger and do what you just did and you turn it around and you use something to energize your body with or to
right.
release whatever and you did
Yeah,
something good for yourself and for your family. Or
yes,
or you did something in memory of that's what I'm trying to do. Take that anger and find a way to turn it around and do something good. Whether you're
yes.
doing it for yourself, for your family, or for anyone else, but in memory of your loved one. That's
Mhm.
the best way to release your anger. Of course, trust in God because God understands our anger. Because remember when he saw witnessed what Jesus went through, and when he witnessed that Jesus died on the cross, he went through that anger too.
Yes.
I had to pause for a moment because John's phone is ringing.
Hmm. Yeah.
So Go tell us about your website or what else that you're doing to motivate
Sure.
and excite people.
Yeah, so this weekend I'm offering a workshop, a free workshop through the Global Grief Conference, right, on Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So anyone who would love to join me, I still have a couple spots for people to be on screen with me, but you can always, I have unlimited space for people to be in attendance.
Wait, wait a minute. You doing a panel?
I'm doing a workshop. So they told me I can have 5 people in the room with me like this that I can see. Yes.
I'll come on if you need someone.
Okay, cool.
I'm doing for Andrew and I'm doing for Marty as well.
Are you free at 6 p.m. on Saturday?
I think I am.
Okay, great. That'd be
So
wonderful.
it's 6 p.m. Eastern time, right?
Yes.
And it's on Saturday
Yes.
on the 30th.
You got it.
I have a class I'm doing in the morning at 1 o'clock our time. So yeah, and
Fantastic.
that would be awesome.
Yes, I'm going to be doing, sharing a little bit about my story and talking about a lot of the things that we're talking about here today. I'll be talking about meditation for grief and offering that as to walk everyone through that experience. We'll probably do some interactive conversation about what that was like for them. And yeah, so I'm really looking forward to that, having some dialogue around how to talk about grief, and especially for families, who are raising children and trying to figure out how, or just caring for others, and how do we talk about it with our loved ones, depending on what our experience is and how they're going through their own grief. Like, how can we have conversations and build a language around mental, emotional, and grief health, that helps us to feel better in our lives and to walk in our purpose and feel more empowered, as we started with our conversation today. So other than that, you can find me at my website, www.wildblossomcoaching.com. That's the name of my business, wildblossomcoaching.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. You can always send me an email, jenny@wildblossomcoaching.com, and I'd be happy to talk with you. I offer a free discovery session to just simply explore, experience coaching, and see if it's right for you. And then I offer different length programs that people can sign up for, and workshops. So always building and growing and offering new things, and open to having conversation with no obligation, just to come and talk and, see if it feels like a good fit for you, and see what the possibilities are.
Well, that is so awesome. Yes, you're one of the panels I would love to go to. I know Andrew's also having one on overcoming anxiety and depression. So, um, you said
Great.
something earlier. Now that I brought that up, you said something earlier. I was trying to bite my tongue not to bring it up. So, anxiety can bring a lot of health issues on us.
Yes.
So, okay, I have anxiety, but not as bad as it used to be. It's a lot calmer than it used to be. Of course, I don't take medication because I've learned to work through my anxiety without
Mm.
medication. But I'm wondering if some of my anxiety that I'm having is also causing some of my other health issues,
Yeah.
like my gut.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
very, it's very possible, Dee. It's very possible. Yeah.
I never would have thought my anxiety would have something to do with that. I will
Mm.
have to talk to my doctor about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And learn some meditation tools, some mindfulness ways to be, sounds like we're coping with your anxiety pretty well. But it could also be diet related, something that you want to take a look at nutritionally. But anxiety, certainly, I struggled with irritable bowel syndrome. I don't know if you've heard about that for a
That's
long
I
time.
have that, but also I've had cancer twice.
Yes.
One in my small intestines, and the first one was in my appendix, which was
Hmm.
attached to my colon. So I
Okay.
lost part of my colon and a lot of my small intestines.
So
So
yeah. So
then,
there,
but then there's that fear that comes up, which is I think is why the anxiety that the
that's yeah,
cancer is going to come back.
of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. That's the normal response. But it can also trigger, discomfort in our stomach if we're anxious, right? It's like you become anxious about the possibilities of what's going to happen. And then for me anyway, it spiraled in that way where I was like, and I had to kind of learn to be more focused on the present moment, I guess, if that makes sense, because that's the place of, because if we're like focused on the past, we have worry and stress about what we've left behind, right? We might have regret, um, and we can feel depressed, and that, or sadness, maybe not extremely depressed, but feel sadness. And then if we're worried about the future, that's where, like, what if this happens? What if I'm not able to overcome this? What if, I do get sick again? And so we have anxiety about that. But when we stay here now together, in this moment, we recognize that we're safe and that we're healthy and that we're okay. The more that we can bring ourselves to that place of peace within that chaotic mind that we have,
Hmm.
um, it can make a difference in our overall health, because our immune system and our nervous system respond to what our mind is thinking.
Yes, yes, and I
So,
forget that a lot. But well, it's good that I'm talking to you. So now that's making more sense. I'll text my doctor and tell her
okay.
that I think so. I need to find that time to do the meditation.
Yeah,
Like
to
calm.
quit, because it's a practice.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's a practice of, 10 minutes a day. We'll talk about it on Saturday. So, if you're going to do just a little bit of it, and then what you do in that short period of time, you'll be able to be more present in times when you feel like you're maybe in crisis mode or just upset or feeling anxious. You'll be able to carry that through so it doesn't affect your physical body. Yeah.
Okay. So then I'm anxious for this next class. Awesome. See, we can be group coaches, but we still learn so much from each other.
You
Because
do.
what you may know can help teach me to be a better coach. But first, I got to be a better person for myself before I can be a coach. So that is really awesome.
It's an ongoing journey. I think all of us, those of us who are helpers, and working in this field, we have maybe we've learned something that we can share with others, but it doesn't mean that we have it all figured out. And
Right.
as long as we're all open to continuing to grow and to learn as we go, that's going to make us the best coaches, that we're open to learning all the time and growing through our experiences. So we'll be able to help guide other people through it. And there's no
And life
time.
is a school. So every day we're
Yeah,
learning something new to better
yeah,
ourselves.
yeah.
Whether it's mentally, whether it's emotionally, whether it's physically, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's educational.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And we should take it as a blessing, you know, that
Hmm.
we're
Yeah,
improving.
an
We're making,
opportunity.
I know people hate changes, but sometimes some changes are good.
Yeah,
Some changes are to improve, to make things better, not necessarily to,
yeah.
you know,
Really, that's what life is about. And once we are open to that's life is going to change and things are going to happen. And it's still hard, but I think once we're like open to that is the way life is, but really, it makes it a lot easier to navigate, just expecting that things are going to change. It's just the nature of how it is for us. So,
yeah. Wow. Well, that is just awesome. I'm so glad you came on. I'm learning something new about more about my global grief conference coaches and
yeah,
whether it's grief or life. But even I am still learning. We're all still learning,
we are.
and we can help each other. And that's the wonderful thing is not only because we're grief coaches or life coaches, but we can take our experience and what we learned from our experience to use it to help others.
Yes.
Because some people may be experiencing the same thing that we did, but don't know how to move forward. They're
Right.
sort of hanging on to that past or to that loss or that dark hole that they have.
Hmm.
So it's that
Yeah.
hope that we want to give to them, the hope for the healing mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. You know?
Yes.
So, and the spiritual
Beautiful.
part, because it just amazes me how so many people stop loving and believing in God because that loved one died. And they're so lost in their grief that no matter what you say to them, it's not going to sink in until they choose to allow that message to help them.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of been the opposite for me where I feel like, I mean, I spoke to, the challenge of, questioning why things happened. But I think once I was able to pause, I call it the powerful pause, like to be in the space of pausing and open to receiving God and love and being open to the possibilities that are set forth for me and my children, that I felt more connected to God than I ever have. That and that certainly in that place of grief, that if we allow ourselves to be honor the space of grief, that we can feel more connected to our loved ones and we can feel more connected to God. So it feels a bit scary, I think, at times, at least for me it did. I think maybe that's also the sudden loss part, because I didn't expect to be thrown into this
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
If there's more preparation when you lose someone, perhaps that's different or not. I can't quite explain that, but I think for me it was like I spent a lot of time in the space. I say, like, the veil between the worlds, between the earthly world and the non-earthly world, was very thin as I was like deep in grief, that first season for myself. And I felt
Because you were
very,
shocked.
yeah, I was in
Right? You were
shock.
shocked that
Yeah,
it happened.
I
So,
was in
so your
shock.
brain, you physically you were in shock, well, mentally
Yeah,
and emotionally too. But
yeah,
when you're in shock, your brain goes into that numb, foggy
it
mode.
does. It does. Yeah. Which in some, and for me, like, to turn my brain, like put my brain in that like numb mode, was actually a good thing in some way.
Really,
It was like, because I turned everything off. I turned everything
you
off, and
paused everything.
I stopped. I was able to pray and to meditate and to receive, and um, just feel more connected to the planet and all there is, the oneness of all of us,
Mhm.
that God brings us together. So I hadn't really felt that until I lost my husband, and it definitely brought me closer to that. So I think if you're open to receiving, and forgiveness, like we talked of earlier, forgiveness of myself, and I think trusting that God does love me, regardless of what has happened or what I've done, that love is always there. So it feels good knowing that.
Wow. All right, so now I'm really anxious to attend your workshop.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that'll be wonderful to
Because
have
even
you.
if I might have heard some of it here, I'm sure I'm going to hear it again. But that's
Yeah.
okay because for me, sometimes I have to hear it many times over before it sinks in. Not that it didn't sink in now, but because of
No,
my
I know
stroke,
what you mean.
because of my stroke,
Sure.
sometimes it takes a lot. Hey, when I listen to Joel Osteen, I used to listen to him 3 times every Sunday morning, and
There
my
you go.
sister would get so mad at me. Why are you listening to him again? Because for me, the first time I'm listening to I'm hearing I'm hearing the information he's given to me. The second time, now I'm listening. And the third time, I'm not only hearing the information he's providing and listening with an open heart, I'm now taking
Mhm.
what you're saying, receiving it in, and letting it be part of my life. So
Yeah, good.
my sister doesn't get that. She doesn't get that part of the, and but for me, that's the best way for me to learn, you know, or to
Yeah.
be inspired because sometimes that's what it takes, at least for me. I don't know how everybody else is different, but She's
I think you're not alone. I think a lot of us are that way, especially when you're learning a new skill, and or a new, a new idea and trying to integrate it into your life. It takes several times for most of us, I think, to really bring that in. So,
yeah. But the funny thing is, it enriches me more and more. The more I listen
mhm.
to it, the more I feel like the spirit is talking to me. And the more,
Mm,
and then the more I open up and let it in. It's just, it's an, I mean, this book from my class I'm doing, you don't know how many times I've read it. The original book I had was so underlined, so circled, so highlighted. I had no more room for a different color because every time I go in there and read it, I learned something more. Now, the
sure.
first time I really learned a lot. It was like practically every sentence is underlined or circled or highlighted. But the second or third time, it really, really helps me to understand that in order for me to understand God's calling, and in order for me to have that call to help a friend, I also need to learn to listen to what they're saying, not just hear the information, but to listen. But it really opens up my heart to understand what my passion and why I have such a compassion to care for people. It's
Mm,
always been in me, but for some reason my younger sister just doesn't want to understand that. She just doesn't. It just she does not want to listen to that anymore. She just they think I'm crazy because I've lost my son, but they don't understand what that kind of grief,
mm.
that kind of emotion does to somebody.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of saying, you know what, we've seen a big change in you, you're doing an amazing job, we support you, we love you. No, instead I get criticized, I get brought down. But I love it when I have friends and everybody that understands why I do this. Like for this conference, Tony
Hmm.
and I think so much of understanding what needed to be done. We had the same vision, and the fact that we all come together, we all have the same vision, that we all have the compassion to care, to answer God's call to help people, not to force religion, not to force God on them, but to be there. Just like what Dr. Wright says, I thought it was in this book, but I think it's another one of his. Just be present.
Mm, love that. Yeah.
Just be present. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Because you know that saying, action speaks louder than words?
Hmm.
Just be present. Be present for
True.
yourself as much as those you help.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, coming together for the grief conference has been an incredible experience for me. And I often say I found my people, I feel
Yeah,
like
you
I've
found your
connected
tribe.
with all of these wonderful people that get me and they see me and they understand, the same things that I'm passionate about. I see that in all of you. And so it lights me up to be part of it and to see everyone shining and doing this work.
That's the key word. Everyone is shining.
Hmm. Yeah.
Everyone is shining. So God is calling us for this mission for a reason. And we just have to be thankful that, at this time of with so much going on in the world, from the pandemic, the war that's going on, and so much suicide, so much OD and drugs. There's so much that's going on that how, you want to help everybody, but you know you can't. And you also know you can't fix everybody either. And I always say, all you got to do is trust God and let Him do the rest. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just trust Him and let Him do the rest. Because only He knows. So thank you, Jenny, for being here today. I look
Um,
forward to being on your. So everybody, Jenny was talking about our virtual global grief conference that is actually coming upon us this coming weekend, April 29th through May 2. I mean, where has the last 3 months gone? It's just like there was not enough time on the clock to get everything done. But we're pushing it. We're going to have a little bit over 60 mental health advocates, professionals like yourself, because there's a few of you, and grief coaches, life coaches, and we're going to be there to provide education to help with support for those who may be grieving or dealing with some kind of mental health issue. We want to be able to be there to help, to support, to bring love, and know that we're here to bring also comfort. So we look forward to seeing you. We're going to be live on Facebook and YouTube, and I believe it's streaming through StreamYard. So I think there was another one, Twitch, something like that.
Yes,
So
I think so.
if you have not registered yet, I suggest you do so. I know at my website, I don't know if you do at your website, I have a page where you can go and you at www.unpluggrief.org/, global hyphen grief hyphen conference. Um, you can go there and register and reserve your seat now that so that you don't lose a spot. And we're going to be having people there for 3 days straight. It is free to the community. So if it's not for you, but it might be for somebody you may know, let them know so they can come and register and be part of this wonderful, wonderful event that we're having. And Jenny's part of it, I'm part of it, and all those that have been sharing this month are part of it. And we want you to be part of it as well. So come and be with us. Jenny, as always, I am going to rebook you. After all this is done and with, maybe for this fall, um,
Fantastic.
for
Thank
this
you so
fall
much.
and bring you back in and maybe the next time you can start teaching us something else other than what your story, because now we
Yeah,
got your background, we can see what else that you can provide that maybe somebody might have missed at the conference.
I'd
um,
be happy to do that. Thank you so much, Dee.
yeah, I really am glad that I brought you on because it's to me it's God's. If it's not for somebody that's listening to that podcast, it definitely was for me. So maybe I'm the one soul that you're reaching out to.
We
But
say that we offer what we need, right? So
yes,
it's like a reflection of
yes,
what is important to us. So that's great.
I'm thankful, and I hope I hope that you have great success this weekend, and but at the same time have a good weekend. What are you gonna do with your daughters? Are you gonna be on, or are you gonna be on and off?
I'm going to be on and off. I'm going to try to interact and be as much part of the weekend as I can, but I have some commitments with them as well. So I might be on my phone just listening to some of these speakers. We'll see, but definitely going to try to attend as much as I can.
Yeah. Well, when you're not on, have fun with your daughters.
Thank you.
Um, Maybe bribe them. I
Hopefully it'll
think
be a nice weekend, so they'll be able to stay outside a little bit while
I did
I'm.
want to ask you one question though. Now that
Yeah.
we're bringing up children, because I know there's gonna be a couple of people on there that's gonna talk about when children grieve.
Mhm.
Um, did you get a sense that your daughters were also grieving for the loss of their dad?
Oh, yes, very much so. Yeah. And having three girls, different ages, going through the experience in three very different ways. Um, just personally, and then also just because they're different. My youngest was 2 at the time, and like witnessed with her like a lot of anger towards me. She had a lot of bad dreams. Just kind of felt like, where's dad? Where'd you go, mom? And she didn't know what else to do other than, just kind of express her feelings towards me. Um, my middle daughter is very quiet and kind of reserved about her emotions. So it's been a really like interesting journey, like teaching her how to talk about, excuse me, um, being sad and angry and upset and
And it's okay to do that. It's okay to be.
yeah, that's okay to have all those feelings. And it kind of having to draw it out of her because again, she had difficulty sleeping. It affected all of our sleep quite a bit after we lost him. And then my oldest wasn't, she was probably the not as close to her dad in some ways, because just because of her personality. She's a very active, involved, wise child, and like she would kind of run circles around her dad a lot of times rather than like really connecting with him. And he was a much more easeful paced person, and so they just, their personalities were not, they didn't click in a lot of ways. But she has grieved really hard in her own way, with missing out on things, not having her dad present, and having a lot of confusion about that. So yeah, so being the mom left behind, trying to figure it out, and help each of them, but also my own expression of my grief, right? So, and then there are times where that one of them would be going through something and I was doing well, and then they're all of a sudden kind of triggered into something, and they start to spiral, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't really want to do this right now, like I don't really want to feel this, but my child is going through it. So in order for her to be able to um, transform her grief too, I need to honor that. So, and then I would also have my own experience. So there was a lot of this kind of like rolling off of each other's experience.
Did
But
um
definitely, yeah,
did the, did the two oldest at least go to get grief therapy?
they did. They've all, yes, the two oldest have been in and out of counseling.
Good.
Yes, and
Yeah.
had quite a support network through from day one. So I was something that obviously that I value as a counselor and a coach. So I knew that I would want that for them. They still occasionally see someone, but not as much anymore. And I have my own weekly support, and my own coach is my own counselor, I have all the things in place, because I feel like if I'm going to be offering this work to others, and support to others, that I really need to make sure that I am I'm caring for myself first, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes. Because it's amazing how you hear how the way society is that a lot of times children are forgotten and left behind, and they don't get that
mm,
grief support.
yeah.
Um,
It's hard to find support, I think, again, so I think that's why I like to reach out to the parents so that they can parent in a way that's supportive to the children. Of course, ideally, if they can be, see a counselor as well. But that's not always possible. I know even with our counselor, there's a lot of limited space for children in the practice, so yes, it tends to be I live in Massachusetts, and the therapeutic supports are very limited, especially around grief. So, and sudden
really,
loss, suicide loss, like a lot of people aren't talking about it. It's not
it's a
something that,
stigma. Yeah.
yeah, it's not a therapeutic modality that a lot of therapists go into. Um, Interesting, right? So there it's like you have the grief piece, and then there's the
Underlying.
trauma connected to it. So having someone who understands all of that and can support an adult is hard to find, and then let alone like children. We had early intervention for support for my youngest. We had a social worker who came into the home because she had some other developmental delays. So for families looking for help with like really young children, I always say like make that call first, because that should be free to you in your community. And if certainly if you've gone through a significant loss, your child is probably struggling, and they'll be eligible for support, and that's free of cost. So we were really blessed with a social worker who came in and met with her, specifically my youngest, for over a year through COVID. Even we had Zoom meetings with her, and she would talk to me, and she would talk to the child, and play with Maggie, my littlest, and read her books, and just kind of like whatever she was going through at that time, help me, support me as the parent, and the relationship I had with her. So it's definitely a great program if you can get connected to it.
So one of the reasons why I became a grief coach is um, I sometimes I'm a member of the Compassion Friends, I don't know if you ever heard of compassion friends.
I
It's mostly
haven't.
parents who've lost children.
Okay.
Um, I hate this when this happens. I forgot what I was just going to say.
Oh,
So I think, oh, so they have like monthly support groups. And when I used to go in the early years after Tim died, um, I remember hearing one mother saying that she tried to go see a therapist, but she wanted to go see a grief therapist. But that therapist was not helping her at all with her grief. And so she stopped
hmm,
going. And
sure.
people don't realize sometimes you have a lot of that underlying of your grief, that sometimes
Yeah,
needs to be worked on as well. So
absolutely.
that's sort of what motivated me to being a grief coach. Whenever
Yeah.
I was seeing my therapist, it's so funny when I talked about my grief about Tim and all, they just silently just sat there, never offered any suggestions or any help. But if I brought up something about my anxiety or this or that, they would perk up and say something. So that also gave me an indicator that maybe this person is not really a grief therapist, or they don't know how to help people who are dealing with grief.
Hmm.
And so, like you said, there's not very many out there. So, what I was
Yeah.
going to suggest, wouldn't you be willing to be a grief therapist for children or for families?
Yes, so have to go through. So the thing about being labeled as that, so I'm not a licensed mental health provider. I went through the training for my master's, but because of rules changing over time, you have to go back, and I would have to go back to school for a couple years and basically redo my master's to be able to apply for a license in my state to qualify in a certain area. So I've decided to do the coaching, as and I have the training in grief work, and be able to offer coaching tools and things to help people move forward. But the counseling piece I leave to the counselors, and then I can be
License, right?
as a support, to people. I have trauma informed background, so there's quite a bit that I can do for people, um, who come to me. So I feel like that's about all I can, that's my piece. And to be able to connect with regular counselors, who maybe don't have the grief training, that they can do certain level of work with people, and then I can certainly support with the grief and any kind of providing tools and strategies for moving forward in your life and next steps. So that's how I've worked with that, because I thought about going back and getting my, therapeutic degree in this and that, and like be very specific. But I've had training in counseling, and I've had training in bereavement and hospice work and pain management and all of these things. I have so much schooling. So to return, I was like, you know what, I really am enough in what I am now. So um
Yeah.
so to be able to like return to school just to be able to receive insurance, I feel, it's difficult because I can't reach people who otherwise, who can't come to me, who don't have insurance. But that's, I provide services in more of a group format for people who are not able to, I do groups for them. So, or workshops or things that are more accessible to more people. I try not to leave anyone out. So, yeah.
Wow. So that's a good quick punch right there. A lesson learned. But yeah, in a sense, God was preparing you for this. You went through all that
Absolutely.
and got done all that, and little
Yeah.
did you know that God was going to use what you learned from all that schooling that's going to
All
help
those
you what
years.
you're doing
Yeah.
now.
Coming
It's
back in.
amazing how God works ways, does things for us that we don't understand at the time until we have that aha moment, and then we
Absolutely.
go, oh, so that's what that was all about.
Yeah. It all came together. Yeah.
Yeah,
It all came together. So,
yeah. Well, Jenny, okay, so I look forward to seeing you this weekend. You have a wonderful weekend, and thank you for coming and being part of us. This is Dee hosting with the Unplugged Grief Ministries podcast, and um, you'll be seeing this on YouTube and hearing it on my ankle. I was recording it on my ankle, but somebody tried to call me, and when they call, it interrupts it. It turns it off. So I'm gonna have to delete that off of there and just use my Zoom video audio. So we'll have it on my anchor.fm / unplug hyphen grief, and then on my YouTube channel for unplug grief as well. I'm gonna try and get her up on YouTube today because I want to get this video shared today for this weekend. So
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so
between
much.
that getting done and trying to get my thing done ready for Friday night,
You got
doing a
this.
lot of praying. Thank you so much for being here, Jenny, and I look forward to having you here again. And I look forward to attending your workshop this weekend. And I hope everybody who's listening will also come and listen to Jenny because I think she has a lot of wisdom, a lot of skills, and a lot to help us with our healing. And I think I'm going to lay with this: the power to forgive yourself.
Hmm, beautiful.
I had another name because I love how you talked about the power to forgive yourself. Or we can call it grief as a teacher.
Hmm,
Because in a way, look what grief did to you and what it just, like you just did to me. You taught me a lot.
so wonderful.
Either way, it's all going to work out. So
Yeah, it
thank you for being here again.
was an
And
honor.
tell your girls, behave. They want something to do.
Well, take care, Dee.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.